Hey everybody, how you doing? Techie 101 here. You know, for the intro today, I thought I would give you something special. I wouldn't just try to make you laugh. I would try to inspire you to new heights. And for that reason, I will now display, this is a very rare moment, I don't usually do this, but I will now display, just for you, my unrivaled, unparalleled artistic talent. And that's correct. Many of you probably did not know I was a master artist, but, I like to keep it on the down low. I don't like to brag, but I am the single greatest artist of my time, if I do say so myself, and I believe I just did. Trained by the ancient masters and their descendants, their mighty disciples, the Squidward Tentacles himself taught me to draw the mighty circle. Oh my god, this is incredible. I don't think I could top... Actually, you know what? Yes, I can. Beautiful. Presenting the mighty giraffe, galloping across the sunny African savanna. Absolutely gorgeous. I could not part with this piece for anything less than 880 million euros. So, Kanjuro's ability. I think this is a good time to talk about it. Last chapter, we got the introduction to Kanjuro as a young lad, growing up in the region of Kibi in Wano, and, he looks like he's kind of down on his luck. He probably doesn't have a lot of money to work with. He's kind of poor. So, he does the sensible thing, which I think a lot of people would arrive to this conclusion, sneaking into villages in the middle of the night and lopping off people's hair, and then going and sneaking into the local graveyard, digging up corpses of long dead, loved ones, and then ripping off their hair, and then bundling that into a brush, and then selling them on the market. Like right next to begging on the streets, or making little straw hats, or selling matchsticks, I think grave robbing and lopping off, corpses' hair to make paintbrushes to sell is right up there, when you're down on your luck, financially, right? Well, anyway, things take a little bit of a turn one day when he tries to cut off Odin's top knot, which, I'm not even in the same, dimension as One Piece characters, but even I know not to mess with that. Seriously, Odin, his top knot is sacred. He came out of the wound with the top knot, alright? His hair doesn't even grow because it would upset the top knot, alright? He is a true samurai to his very core, alright? Every fiber of his hair is enough to lift up Mount Everest, for God's sake. So, yeah, Kanjuro tries to lop that off, and Odin knocks him down, and he's just like, what the hell are you doing? And Kanjuro's, oh, please, sir, I'm sorry. And Kanjuro, long story short, ended up becoming a loyal vassal and retainer of Lord Odin. So, okay then, but we didn't really get to see his devil fruit in the last chapter. He apparently did not have it, but at least that's the connection between the painting, because he always carries the giant paintbrush, and his devil fruit, we don't know the name of it yet. It can't be the art fruit, because that was Jola's fruit. Maybe it's the paint fruit, or the painting fruit, or something of that nature. But he has a fruit that extends with artistic ability. The more artistic ability you have, the more useful and the more practical this fruit will be. So this is one of those things where it's like perfect example of, the fruit's power itself can actually be greatly affected by the skill of the wielder. Alright, so for instance, the same thing with the Opi no Mi, Law's fruit. That fruit, if you don't have surgery or doctor experience, sure, you still use it when you eat it, but it's like you get the full experience with actually having those skills, because it's like Law knows. I'm like, okay, these are where all the different arteries are, so I can separate them. I know how many bones are in the human body. I know where all your organs are located, right? Because he's a surgeon. He knows how to do this, so he's the perfect person to get that fruit. Now, if you were to give Kanjuro's fruit to somebody like Carrot, who has impeccable artist ability, maybe even vaguely approaching my own, then she would probably be able to utilize that fruit way more effectively than Kanjuro does. Because Kanjuro, the joke is he has a fruit that allows him to bring drawings to life, and he really, really sucks at drawing. Alright, it's to be completely transparent here. This is maybe one tier below Kanjuro's artistic skills. He can maybe draw a little bit better than this, but not very much. Here are some examples of his amazing artistic creations. We got the escaping flying sparrow, this poor creature, because also, the creatures he creates I mean, they're still made of ink, technically, so they don't need to eat or breathe or drink or anything like that. If he draws a bird with wings, it will be able to fly. If he draws a fish, it'll wiggle like a fish. But they simulate living creatures. So they're in like constant pain and misery because Kanjuro is drawing them in all these asymmetrical, misshapen ways. Like he'll draw the sparrow with this like huge circular body and the wings are disproportionately small, so the poor thing can fly, but it's like a Dunsparce. You ever see a Dunsparce trying to fly? In fact, you know what? Kanjuro, did you draw Dunsparce? Were you working for Game Freak back in like 2099, somewhere around there? And you're like, oh, let's bring in this special artist. He's gonna design some new Pokemon for us. And he designs exactly one, and then they fire him, and they're like, well, the game's deadline is like next Tuesday. We don't have time to throw some other random Pokemon. Screw it. Throw this poor, sad creature in the game. Just shove it in the back of a cave. No one's ever gonna use it. That actually makes a lot of sense. I love Dunsparce. I really do. He's a sad being of a Pokemon, but I would love this guy to get like a Mega Evolution at some point. You know what I mean? Alright, that was a massive tangent, but what was I talking about? Alright, Kanjuro's poor artistic skills. Alright, so, yeah. Now, like I said, we don't know the name, but let's look into see what he can really do here with this stuff. Okay, so the general idea is he has this giant brush on his back. It doubles as, I think, his sword. We haven't seen it yet, but I have a theory, and it's just a One Piece theory, but I have a theory that that thing on his back, it is like a scabbard for an actual katana, because he usually fights with the brush, and it's a pretty sturdy brush. I think this is actually the item he used to push back the bird cage, but I just have a feeling like that's a scabbard, and it's just the brush for a scabbard, and there's an actual katana underneath that he doesn't usually use, but he can. And we saw him with a katana in the past when he met Odin, so, and he's from Wano, so he's most likely adept at using a sword, so I'm just gonna throw that out there as a possibility. Now, he doesn't need to use that particular brush for his Devil Fruit. It seems to be like he can use anything, but the idea is that anything he draws comes to life. So if you want it to be useful in combat, like if he does want to draw a dragon to attack his enemies, or a bird to fly away, you need an equally large writing or drawing implement in order to draw something that big, right? So yeah, I think, Kanjuro could just take a regular marker or whatever and grab a piece of paper and just sketch and draw something and it could come to life, but it'd be really tiny, just like, ah, yes, Momo, what would you like for me to draw to you today? I was like, oh, I want a turtle, a pet turtle, Kanjuro. Ah, pet turtle, all right, I'll draw you a pet turtle here, young Momo. Oh, yes. There you go, there's your pet turtle, and he brings it to life, but it's, equal to the size of when you draw it, so the turtle really would be, like, 2 inches across, okay? So, kind of adorable, a nice pet to have, I guess, but not really useful in actual combat, alright? Unless you draw, unless it's a mine turtle, you could draw the mine turtle, and so, I'm gonna draw this, it's a mine turtle, there you go, and you just make about 30 of those, and you just send them out into the battlefield, and then, nature takes its course at that point, right? Actually, let's talk about that. What kind of features do the creatures, and not only creatures, he can also draw objects. It's just we normally see him draw actual living animals. Like we saw him draw a cat, a dragon, Ryunosuke, forever in our hearts. He drew a tiger at one point and the sparrow. But when they were also leaving the trash compactor at Dressrosa in order to get out of there, he drew a very crooked ladder so they could climb out. It was kind of hard to climb, but he drew it, and whatever 2D shape he draws becomes 3-dimensional. That's the general idea. Food. He also drew food. He drew some lettuce that he was subsisting on in the trash compactor, because apparently he was thrown in that trash compactor a while ago. Like, Kanjuro and Kinemon and Momo arrived at Dressrosa. Kanjuro got captured, thrown in the trash pits, and then he was just down there, and he used his Devil Fruit to kind of like make a fake wall to hide behind, and then he was just behind that wall for a very long time and just making food and just munching on it. Kinemon talked about how the food that Kanjuro creates hurts his stomach, because I would imagine you're literally eating paint or ink or whatever substance he's making it out of, that's what it's made out of. It doesn't seem to translate it to, I don't know if it tastes like lettuce, but the material it's made out of is certainly definitely not lettuce or cabbage or whatever he drew, okay? I'll give you that much. Maybe it does go to that level. Considering the sparrow was able to fly and everything like that, and Ryunosuke and all the animals that he creates seem to have their own personalities, there is a little bit of leniency. The devil fruit does give a little bit of life into the drawing. I like to assume that the more accurate the drawing is, then it gets more traits that are equal to that, right? But in the case with drawing like the lettuce or the cabbage, I imagine it's first you have to visualize what the object is. Because if I just, especially with Kanjuro's drawing skills, okay, if I just draw this, if I just drew that and I showed it to you, what would you think this is? Would you immediately think, oh, that's a head of cabbage? No. So whenever Kanjuro's drawing something, part of it has to be his own, intent on what it is. He has to be sitting there drawing this and be like, I am drawing a head of cabbage right now. All right. And so, because he knows that it's cabbage, it gets created as cabbage. All right. But it does not, like I said, it's still made of paint and ink. It might have the consistency of cabbage. It's green like cabbage, so it gets the color to it. That's another thing, too, because Kanjuro usually just draws with black ink, and yet the creatures that he does create, or the objects that come forth from his fruit, do have color to them. So he draws, just this, but when he creates it, it literally is green cabbage or green lettuce. All right, so I'm wondering if that's completely dependent on, okay, Kanjuro knows what cabbage is. He's eaten real cabbage before, so that's why it takes on this appearance. If Kanjuro drew something that he never personally saw or interacted with or ate before, I'm wondering if that could also come into being. He's obviously seen tigers and cats and sparrows before. He's even seen an actual dragon before because of Kaido. So it would make sense that drawing a dragon would come to life because he's seen an actual dragon and he knows what it looks like. In fact, the reason he created Ryunosuke is kind of messed up because, yeah, he creates Ryunosuke because they needed some way to climb up Zou or climb up Zunisha to get to Zou. And after he draws the dragon, Ryunosuke, Kinemon's like, a dragon? Really, Kanjuro? You're drawing a dragon of all things? And Kanjuro's like, well, kind of a bite back at Kaido, really. They didn't mention Kaido because we didn't know Kaido was a dragon yet. By the way, did you know Kaido was a dragon? But it was kind of Kanjuro's way of, sticking it to Kaido. Like, yeah, Kaido thinks he's an awesome, badass dragon. Well, I'm going to draw this poor thing, to use as our personal means of conveyance up this giant elephant. I'm going to create this really sad dragon creature that just wants its existence to end like Mr. Meeseeks as quickly as possible because it's in so much pain. All right, but yeah, after they climb up to the top, it then disappears and it goes back into a drawing. So there's a few other reasons why it will go back into a drawing. For one thing, it can come to life from any flat surface, but if it were to go into another flat surface, it would transform back into a drawing. So if you draw this cabbage come to life and you have a cabbage, and then you throw it at a flat surface, it hits the surface, it doesn't splat or anything, it just turns back into a drawing on said surface. It can also turn back if it encounters anything that ink is insoluble in, for example water or any sort of oil or liquid, anything like paint thinner. If it comes in contact with any chemical or liquid like that, the drawing would also disappear there. I don't even think that's because necessarily of the devil fruit weakness. I think that's just because ink and certain types of ink I think are actually, they do float on top of water. I've actually seen that where people will draw things on a piece of paper and then dip the piece of paper in water, and the drawing will actually stay, the paper will sink, but the drawing itself, the ink, will stay on the water, and you can kind of move it around, and it's actually really cool. But most paints, probably the paints or the ink that Kanjuro's using, yeah, it would just dissolve in water or some kind of chemical soap. So, if Kanjuro ever fought against Khalifa, I don't think it would work that well, or Osuru, the fruit's power would kind of cancel each other out there, right? But yeah, I'm curious about that. I'm curious if Kanjuro could draw something he's never seen before, because living in Wano his whole life, he's not familiar with modern firearms, Beiji has, the Tommy gun and everything. I wonder if somebody explained to Kanjuro, what a Tommy gun looks like, and they do exist in the One Piece world, an automatic weapon, if he would be able to, even if he draws it perfectly, all right, make that part, that's the drum stock right there, okay, and then you draw a barrel. I'm okay, because he knows what a gun is, but he doesn't know what that kind of gun is, because they do have matchlocks and stuff in Wano. But if he draws something like that, and it comes to existence, like, would it function as an actual Tommy gun, even though if he's never encountered one before, he's never interacted with it. Likewise, I really don't think, like, that brings to question the functionality of some of these things, like the mine turtle. Let's say he creates, like, all right, I'm gonna draw a turtle with a mine on its back, right? And just like, would that actually work? Because he's drawing it, that's what he intends it to be. He brings it to life. Anybody that steps on this trigger, just boom. So would that actually work if he did draw that? Not a mine turtle necessarily, but any sort of explosive? Could he draw like a giant bomb, and would the bomb actually function as it would be intended in that case, or are there limits with that? I would assume there are limits, and the limits exist in his own, like, capabilities, right? So, if it's something that's too strong, like, he can't... I mean, in theory, I think he could do this if he had enough of a wide open space. He could draw, like, a fake doodle version of Kaido. Like Doodle Bob, oh my god, picture that. Okay. Let's stop for a moment. We need to imagine this, because this is hilarious, okay? In order to fight against Kaido, Kanjuro picks out, like, a huge spot of, like, just, field, just dirt on the ground or whatever, and he takes out his mighty paintbrush, and he spends about an hour working on, like, a giant fake version of Kaido, and then he's like, adieu! And then, like, Doodle Kaido comes out of the ground, all misshapen and messed up, like, one of his arms is, like, 3 times bigger than the other arm, and his eyes are, like, freaking, like, here and here, and his horns are, like, one horn's going like this, one horn's going like that, his tattoos are all messed up, and it's like, Doodle Kaido! He's like, meep! And he fights against Kaido, and they're huge, they're equal in size, and they're, like, clashing with each other, and it's like, what the hell is this thing? Now, Kanjuro could do that. That's not even like, from what we've seen with the other creatures, he could totally draw something like that. But it probably would not have comparable strength to Kaido. There has to be a limit here, because if that was the case, Kanjuro could just draw, like, I draw a magic ball, and anything that comes in contact with this magic ball is instantly disintegrated. Hi, Kaido. What? Stop! I don't think he could do stuff like that. There's definitely an upper limit here. Like, creating a sparrow to fly, that seems within the realm of feasibility. Creating a dragon that can climb up a wall, in the realm of feasibility. Something, maybe if he makes the purpose of it too vague, just like magic ball that disintegrates anything it touches. Like, that's too OP, and that's the concept of that is a little bit obscure, so yeah. But yeah, I think, like, at the very least, he should be able to create things like swords and shields and armor with this. Like, if you're short... Now, the problem is he sucks at drawing, and I don't think it works where somebody else could draw for him, and then he uses the adieu. It has to be his handiwork, okay? Because if that was the case, we're short on weapons, we're short on armor, get Carrot in here. Carrot comes in, she draws, like, a perfectly straight katana, and then Kanjuro could just be like, appear, 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 and then swords just start popping out of the paper. They would have limits, to how they, work. I mean, after you use them a few times, they would eventually disappear, but they're better than anything. They're better than nothing, right? So yeah, I mean, not even just for that, but just for a tactical advantage, just for a little bit of intimidation. If Kanjuro was just maybe a little bit better at drawing, he could actually make that to very advantageous on the battlefield. You can draw giant dragons or giant, like, just giant giants, behemoths. So when you're charging toward Onigashima, holy crap, they're a bunch of samurai flanked with a bunch of giant dragons and ogres and oni, like all these creatures from, like, Japanese mythology, like yokai and stuff, stomping toward Onigashima with their giant clubs, right? And then, they wouldn't be very formidable on their own. Only a few hits would cause them to disappear if they come in contact with the water, or it's raining right now in Onigashima, so I guess that wouldn't work anyway. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't raining, yeah, it would be intimidating if Kanjuro was a decent artist. It'd be like, I'm gonna draw, like, 30 giants to accompany us on this attack, and be like, oh, okay, that'll at least, bluff out the opponents a little bit. Like, holy crap, we might have to retreat. They have, like, 30 giants on their side, they have a giant dragon behind them. Where'd they get that? So there's something you could do with that. There's definitely possibilities here in battle. He usually uses this, though, for things like subterfuge and spying. Like, you draw a fake wall to hide behind. When he was pretending to be a fishmonger in Wano, he drew a bunch of fake fish, and the fish are in the basket, and they're just, like, flopping around, and he's like, oh, yes, would you like a fish, ma'am? And he sells a fish to this lady, and the lady's looking at it like, how do I cook this? Like, how do I... Because the second you would try to descale the thing, the second you lay the fish and try to, like, take a knife and try to scale it, it would just probably, like, just disappear at that point or turn back into a drawing right on your cutting board and be like, I think I've been screwed over here in this fish purchase, something like that, right? So they have a certain number of damage they can take, but yeah, to bluff out your opponent, pretty useful, and it's not like, it seems like with the creatures they create, it is sort of like Mr. Meeseeks from Rick and Morty, where they give them one particular purpose. Kanjuro gives Ryunosuke the purpose to climb up Zunisha, and after that purpose is fulfilled, he disappears. He gives the sparrow the purpose of flying out of the trash compactor, and once he does, the sparrow disappears. They're in a massive amount of pain, but they do try to fulfill their purpose as best as possible. So there is a little bit of endurance there with the creatures. We just haven't seen them in battle. That's the thing. It's not like Kanjuro, we've ever seen him draw like a lion and be like, all right, mighty lion, attack the beast pirates, and the lion's like, it's like its claws and its legs are all like different like lengths, so it's like walking really weird, and it finally gets to an opponent, and maybe all the opponent has to do is just take a club and just smack the thing once on the head, and it just pops back into a drawing. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, because we haven't really seen them in combat yet, right? So for right now, though, I mean, they could be used to bluff if it wasn't raining, but it is. So I guess this is certainly a kind of power that's pretty useless in the rain, because you can't do anything with it at this point. Kanjuro's going to have to rely on his own sword skills and his other combat abilities in order to fight, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe after they get to Onigashima and they get inside of the giant skull fortress, where it's not raining, maybe then Kanjuro could use his drawing abilities for something. It's like, I'm gonna create a giant version of Kaido to hold him back for a little while, or at least just to... Oh, can you imagine if Kaido was like wicked drunk and he woke up and he saw that thing right in front of him? He'd be like, whoa, okay, maybe I've been drinking a long time, but I think this might be the time for me to quit. He sees the giant Doodle Kaido in front of him. Someone needs to draw Doodle Kaido. You can picture exactly what he looks like in your head right now, can't you? I can, and it's hilarious. Someone please draw Doodle Kaido. This would be great. Alright, I could even probably do it. Something like that, maybe. Alright. But anyway, yeah. Conjuro's Devil Fruit. Let me know below how you think, well, let me know below first off of what you think it's named. I think right now I'm just gonna go with the paint fruit, or maybe the painting fruit, maybe something, because he is drawing works of art to create it. And what exactly is the limit with what he can do? Can he draw things that he's never seen before and they can function the way that are described to him? Can other people draw things and he could bring them to life? That really doesn't seem to be the case, though. And what do you think the endurance of these things are in actual combat? You think it's just like one hit and they disappear, or do you think they might have like maybe like Naruto's shadow clones, maybe like a little bit more endurance? They can take light hits, but if they take any serious damage, they would just disappear and they're useless. So let me know about that stuff below. Thanks for watching, everybody. Tekking signing out. Barry he's also a very good artist. Yes. This painting right here, this is 100% Barry. Absolutely. Nobody else. Maybe you might be thinking of somebody else, the famous person in history, but no, that was actually all Barry. Whole time. Yep. Have a great day, everybody. Tekking signing out.